Welcome to Popcast Deluxe. You are very ready to make nice. A weekly cultural review. I'm John Caramanica, a critic at the New York Times.
I'm Joe Coscarelli. I'm a reporter at the New York Times.
Just quick round of applause. I'm not going to say why. Just quick round of applause for Joe.
I'm back.
Joe's back. We're back. We had an off week. A lot happened in that off week. We can't have an off week ever again, apparently.
Especially not Q1 2024. It's
No.
just like everybody is showing up to play.
Which is strange because I actually felt like this was going to be relatively quiet. Like I felt like people were going to say, we'll keep it quiet for the Grammys, for the Super Bowl. We're not going to.
We'll let Dua roll out her new single for 6 weeks.
Absolutely. Like, we are all collectively, what is it called in sport? Collective bargaining? Like we're all collective bargaining to allow Dua to do the thing that she needs to do. Dua maybe is going to move that back. Like Dua's tucking her chain right now.
Yeah,
This is what I would say. Dua's tucking her chain right now. Since we have last seen you, the Super Bowl.
Yes.
Grammy. Well, we did Grammys.
We haven't talked since
Post game.
the
We
Grammys.
have post game.
Yeah.
Grammys post game. Super Bowl. Kanye. New Beyonce songs. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce.
We're going to cover it all.
Yeah, this is going to be relatively freeform. There's a lot going on, but I feel like I don't really want to get too into the Grammys. I also want to confess I did not count up the ballots. Did you count up the ballots?
I didn't, but I'm pretty sure I won. No, I have no idea. I was happy I called Song of the Year.
Yes.
Billie, Song of the Year. It's just like she's just going to win every time she does a
Fair.
slow song.
We'll count the ballots. Maybe we'll put it in the Discord or something.
We were wrong a lot.
We were wrong a lot, but really the Grammys were wrong a lot. I just don't want to I'm a prideful person. I feel like they got it wrong quite a bit. Both the will and should,
You
frankly.
nailed Album of the Year.
But that didn't seem that hard.
We knew Killer Mike was going to win Rap Album, I think.
Did you see the broom?
Yeah, Killer Mike selling a broom for sweeping the rap categories at the Grammys. How many people are buying?
Apparently it sold out.
But how many did they make? One of one, Killer Mike broom.
It does. It's giving artisanal.
It's a good bit.
Is it?
It's a bit.
It's a bit. I will concede that it's a bit. We should probably pick up the Super Bowl.
Uh-huh.
I'm so got me feeling it. Know what it is, but it seems she's got me twisted. I'm so.
On regular Popcast, we did a little bit of a pregame about Usher's career. Here's what I felt on a top line, and I wrote about this in my piece. What you realize about Usher watching him perform on that stage is not that Usher is he's not a 4-quadrant pop star in that sense. Usher is someone who does really, really small and precise things really well and has found ways to weaponize those, particularly through music video over the years.
Amazing music videos.
Yes. I mean, incredible, great run in the 2000s. And I thought I think I realized that would be a conundrum for Super Bowl producers and directors, because how do you communicate that unless you turn the whole thing into a party, which some of it was. But I think on a basic level, they did a good job of saying Usher is essentially performing for the television.
Mm-hmm.
How do you have a man like that perform for the television? Focus on the details and just let him do the thing that he does well and not have too much distraction. It was, frankly, a real contrast, I thought, to the Weeknd Super Bowl performance.
Oh, okay.
Where the Weeknd doesn't,
he doesn't do micro
He doesn't
gestures.
do anything. Yeah. All loved Abel, but he doesn't do that. He's this great singer, but he's not a bodily performer. And I remember that field was so full of people, and you really got the sense of the scale of the field by how many people were on it.
And the Rihanna one too was all about space. It was all the platforms. It was widescreen.
Yeah.
And this was zoomed in. And in that sense, it really reminded me of the J-Lo Shakira one.
Oh yeah,
Because that was about body
and dancing
and dancing more than voice. And so when Usher first started and you realized that he was going to be singing live, except for the cutaways when he would let the background vocals or the crowd handle stuff, I was like, ooh, is this going to be shaky? And then I realized he was like, don't worry about the singing. You know the words to these songs. We all know these songs.
Yes.
Focus on the dancing.
And also, if you acknowledge that the performer is performing live, you will forgive some misses or some sitting lines out or whatever. You'll forgive it if your brain is tuned into the fact that they are doing multiple things at once.
And it took me a second to get there, but I got there pretty quickly.
And also what I will say is, like, I think because of the dancing and because there's so much, not just movement in the body, but obviously you have to cover a lot of ground on the football field, he sat some lines out. Like, and I didn't think he sat some lines out because he couldn't sing them. I think it's
to
like
breathe, literally to breathe.
Literally to breathe and to transition from like this part of the field to this part, or from the grass to the stage or whatever. But I was incredibly struck in hearing, and I don't want to say missteps because there weren't missteps, but
there was a misstep.
We're about to get to that. There. But like in Usher singing, there were not missteps, but there were moments where you hear the breath.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not used to hearing the breath in something as polished as this performance.
Yep.
But it all made the whole thing feel very human scaled. And I didn't mention the breathing thing in my piece, but I think that that's part of it too. If you're going to have the camera focus on his feet doing what his feet do, on him doing doing all that, you want to hear the breath as well to say, okay, there's labor being performed here.
It was very labor intensive.
It's extremely laborious.
What did you think of the set list?
I thought it was a curious choice to kind of go here to here to here in terms of energy.
Sure.
I actually thought it was going to start with I understand why they ended with it. Also in terms of like rolling out the guests. No Jeezy. It
was too early in the set list to have a guest, especially when you had bigger guests later.
Yeah, and obviously no Bieber.
No Bieber. He wasn't feeling it.
No.
That's what the page 6 report says.
I know. Who can relate?
He wasn't feeling it. But I knew when those rumors were floating, I was like, Bieber has no interest in performing at the Super Bowl.
Although you saw the footage of him performing at
the NHL All-Star game.
Nobody do body like you do. I can't do when I'm with you.
I thought he sounded really good.
Yeah, but like he loves hockey.
No, so he'll only ever sing if hockey is involved. It's not that's a sport.
Yes.
But like I thought he sounded great.
He sounded great. But he was never going to be there on the Super Bowl
100%.
stage. Like, especially in between. He's not promoting any, like, just so he could wear a Drew shirt, like, on the Super Bowl stage.
To express his affection for his mentor.
Yeah, but what? They're going to do Somebody to Love? Like, Bieber does not know the words to that song.
No. They would have let Bieber do Baby. Like, they would have made him do Baby, like, in the middle of it somewhere. There was one moment that was, I mean, you want to talk about, hey, we're singing live.
Yep. So cuts to Alicia Keys.
Sure does.
At the piano.
Big red piano.
Big red dress.
Taking
big
over
red
the
cape. Whole field.
And the cape flew off, and so did the first note.
It was a little pitchy. But you would not know that now if you went and rewatched the official footage.
You told me this.
On the YouTube channel of the NFL.
I want to confess I have not watched the AI'd version
the
of it.
Smoothed out.
I have not watched the pitch corrected version, but you're saying that there is a pitch corrected version that is replacing what actually happened.
Yes.
Do we have both versions?
Yeah, we'll play both.
Some people want it all. Some people want it all.
This is blasphemy. I haven't listened to it, but this is blasphemy. Yes.
You don't think this happens in the Eras Tour movie and the Renaissance film?
Of course it does. But those are films that are aggregate films of multiple performances. They are not meant to reflect one isolated performance that was viewed by 100 million people. It's like we all saw it. We all heard it. No one's being fooled.
No one will remember it, though. I think people are being fooled. That's the thing. Like everything you see on TV, John, a little bit fake. Like the opening of Michael Jackson's 1993 Super Bowl performance where he's standing on stage basking in the cheers of the crowd, like piped in crowd noise.
Yeah, sure.
Listen, shout out to Leon and his Michael Jackson podcast where they go into this with Jay Smooth. Think Twice. Good podcast.
Yeah.
All that is, it's smoke and mirrors. Like it's show business, baby.
But all that crowd noise was piped in. You're saying on the day,
on the telecast,
right?
Like the people in the crowd are like,
no.
Why is Michael Jackson
but I'm saying,
just
but there's not
there?
two versions of it.
There's one version.
There's
the
one.
fake version.
It's a fake version. I understand. But here, when 100 million people have heard the real version,
Yeah.
and then for future generations, so you're telling me future generations are going to press play on YouTube.com or on their
NFL.
Apple thing, Apple thing.
Apple Vision Pro.
They're going to do this and press play, right? And they hear a perfect note. Then they're going to do this and then open up my review and say, oh, what the hell was the New York Times talking about?
You're concerned about the lead of your review, which is going to look inaccurate.
I'm just saying.
That's why newspapers exist. The
first
historical
draft
record.
the first draft of history.
No auto-tune.
I'm disappointed in you. I'm disappointed in them. I'm disappointed. Also, can I just say one more thing? I'm disappointed because I think if you make a mistake, sometimes you got to lean into it.
It's
and
true.
just like take the L.
It's true.
Take the L.
I did think, it's a little ballsy for Usher to be duetting with Alicia Keys because, like, Usher doesn't have the voice of Alicia Keys. So the fact that she sort of like, maybe she was just easing him in, like, don't be nervous when we're about to harmonize here.
But I will say that there was something really soothing about when he did come in for the harmony, because he's not the powerhouse that Alicia Keys is. He brings her down a little bit, or she comes down to meet him. Sure. I mean, whichever, you know. But there was something, and that's why I found that particular stretch of the performance weirdly affecting, which is because in the middle of this whole spectacle, you really just had this like kind of like, it's much like a podcast.
Yeah.
Just like
just a two-hander.
Just two people talking to each other, just like intimate, close. Yep. That to me, I thought was really striking in the context of what would come afterwards, of course, which is then you have Usher stripping off clothes and dancing, and then eventually you have we have Lil Jon, and we have Ludacris.
You're skipping over Jermaine Dupri. Jermaine Dupri looking like...
I'm not touching it. Touching it.
As Kid Mero said, looking like a Dominican toddler, basically. And then JD posted the close-up of the sock with the side pocket on it. The little like pearl.
No, I didn't even see that.
It took me longer. Okay, we're going to... Jermaine, I saw right away. I was like, all right, that's Jermaine Dupri. Yeah. He's looking a little crazy, but we'll forgive it because he's Jermaine Dupri.
He's Jermaine Dupri.
will.i.am took me a second.
Because of the visor? Because he was like...
Just the whole, like, time goes by.
He was wearing the Apple Vision Pro. He came out of the Vision Pro.
Time goes by. I didn't clock will.i.am until I realized they were doing Oh My God.
But because I think that, unless I'm wrong... They didn't start with the chorus of OMG.
Correct.
They started
there
with
was like
verse.
There was a little
right, and like respectfully to that song.
Right.
What?
I thought they
Am
were
I supposed to know the
there. I thought that was going to be the opening song to just get it out of the way,
and also sort of an implied nod to the
Yes.
2011 halftime show when Usher joined Black Eyed Peas.
Right. Okay, but here's where I was going with the special guest. How long did it take you to realize that Her was on the stage? And did anyone in the room with you say, is that Northwest?
I just want to be, I got to be honest, I have been so Her-pilled after years of award
watching
shows.
award shows.
Yeah. I said, that's Her. And I texted Karen. I said, is that Her? And Karen said, it sure is. So yeah, actually I got it right away. But it's like when you've seen her perform on like 5 different Grammy Awards.
You know her
signature,
her solo
and her
form.
signature. She has her own guitar.
Yeah.
It's very wild.
Overall, you put it at the top of a pantheon of Super Bowl halftime performances, or near this. You review this every year. You do an instant review, basically every year for the last what? Like, should we count them?
7, 8, 9,
a lot. And it's like that's quick. That's deadline writing.
Yeah. That piece was written in, let's call it 45 minutes.
So I'll forgive you if you don't remember, if you don't have long-term memory for all the Super Bowl halftime performances, because it's a stressful moment. But like, was it a classic?
I don't know if it was a full classic. I think it was second quartile.
Okay. Like not Prince, basically.
No.
Right.
No.
But fine.
No, I'd say it was like...
And not Beyoncé.
Better than... No, it was like...
Better than Coldplay.
R.I.P. Coldplay. It was above average, but it was below superior.
Okay.
I thought it was like incredibly effective, and they worked with what they had really well.
Yeah.
They didn't try to force Usher to be something that Usher wasn't, But also what Usher isn't is Beyonce or Rihanna or a super huge, again, grand scale. And even the song, like you say you thought OMG was going to open, OMG, Love in This Club, these kind of like big the cheesier side of Usher hits, they didn't make Usher lean into that.
Yeah.
Which is actually kind of a relief. Like Usher's most important records are like up-tempo R&B records from the late 90s to the mid 2000s, and they basically allowed Usher to be Usher.
Doing Nice and Slow was great.
Yep.
I was very happy to hear that. You pointed out that it has a second life as a meme
Yes.
a little bit, so I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
So I wasn't expecting Nice and Slow. Climax was one that I was like sort of on the line, like, are they going to let him have a vocal showcase moment? But like those are really high notes, that
Yes.
falsetto. So like I wasn't shocked he didn't do that. You Don't Have to Call, amazing, incredible. You know, I thought there was enough for everyone, but I wonder, like, just fundamentally, do you think that Usher is a big enough legacy artist to do the Super Bowl? I mean, I know he did it, so the question is
Yes,
moot. But like,
yes,
did it land for everyone, or is it just that like I am now graduated into like it's for me? You
You're
know what I
old.
mean? Like a lot of those songs played at my prom.
Yeah, you're
Like,
old.
I'm old.
Yeah, like those are like
Millennials are
Usher-
washed.
Millennials have been washed.
Yeah, but does he cover the full
Yes.
spectrum of Super Bowl viewers?
Yes. Well, no, but I think you could maybe the right question is, did certain prior people who have played the Super Bowl also cover the full spectrum of Super Bowl viewers?
Right.
No, they were more targeted towards older audiences, towards white audiences. So,
Especially in that in-between post-Janet period.
yeah, and like if you look at the last 5 years, obviously it's tilted Black pop superstars
In the Rock Nation.
Yes, but
producing era.
but if you look right before then,
Right.
Maroon 5, Coldplay. I mean, if there was a real run of Super Bowl performers that I felt were like specifically designed to exclude people, the type of people probably who felt included by watching an Usher performance.
Right. It was a very Black performance, and it was a very Atlanta performance, as
Very
you pointed
Atlanta.
out in your review.
And also the thing that I think we have to remember about Usher circa 02 to 04, who was more famous than Usher? Britney?
Yeah.
In that particular moment.
Yeah.
Like Usher had like 5, 6 number ones in a row.
Yeah. Confessions era,
into like that whole stretch. Yeah, is both like a pop mega smash and an like a major avant-garde record.
Completely.
Like it's insane. No one was doing that. So maybe the argument is, should Usher have been doing the Super Bowl halftime show in 2007?
Way earlier.
Yeah.
He should have been on the stage with like Aerosmith and Britney and NSYNC probably.
I think
like,
so.
Even a decade before.
I do think that.
Yeah.
I also think like Usher in the last like 3 or 4 years, they've done a lot of work to kind of like build up the Usher catalog and say like, Usher's a legacy artist. I don't know if this is what him and his management had in mind.
Right,
as
the
like
Vegas
an
review
endpoint.
era.
Right. I unfortunately didn't have the opportunity to see the Vegas residency, but my sense is it did a fairly good job of like showcasing him as like a showman, but also kind of like reminding you of like the potency of he's been famous for 30 years.
It's true.
And so a Vegas review leading into a Super Bowl halftime show is actually a fairly normal progression. Is that going to be like, who's next? Is it, you see Mariah is going to do it? Like, are there other folks coming out of the Vegas universe who are going to end up doing this?
It is a great stage to practice.
Very
that.
much so.
And the path of Usher becoming what you're talking about was pulled off flawlessly.
Not guaranteed.
Nobody mentioned 5-ish years ago when Usher's reputation was not great. He was going through a lot. There were all these lawsuits about him giving people sexually transmitted diseases. I think many of them were settled or dismissed.
Yeah.
But like there was a period where Usher, there was a lot of nasty headlines about Usher over and over and over again. And like all of that has completely been smoothed away in a way you haven't seen with one of his contemporaries like Justin Timberlake, who's still sort of battling his negative tabloid headline from 5+10 years ago.
Do you sense that is part of that because Usher, in an earlier phase of his career, essentially made hay of the bad tabloid.
Because of Confessions.
Because of Confessions. It was like,
yeah.
oh, I'm going to make great art out of this.
Sure.
Whereas someone like Justin never really like fully transferred it into art.
Yeah.
Do you think Usher has, I don't know if it's resilience or maybe it's an absorptive power, a way to like fold that in? Why do you think that he was able to like bounce back from that or sidestep it?
I think he just doubled down on what he's good at, which is what you're saying. It's entertaining. It's like he has so many good songs. I saw him at Madison Square Garden a couple years ago, and I grew up on Usher songs, but you still forget until you see them all in one place. And I think nowhere better than Vegas to just be like, here's all my hits, and the videos go viral, and he has all these celebrity viral moments.
Yeah.
Like he just put his head down and did the work, and I think that's what came through also in the telecast. Okay, here's another question for you.
Yeah.
We talked about how Rock Nation has been behind these last string of Super Bowl halftime performances.
Yes.
It was really Usher's moment.
Yes.
He put out an album right before all of this.
Yeah, not bad.
Which we didn't talk about.
It's not bad. Fine album. Fine. Some interesting Afrobeat stuff on there. Yeah.
And you would think maybe this whole week would be Usher Victory Lap week. And then you get a commercial for a telecommunications company, and another Rock Nation affiliated artist decides to drop some music.
How about the first woman to launch the first rocket for the first performance in space?
Wow, Verizon didn't break.
You ain't gonna break me.
Still works.
Okay, they ready. Drop the new music.
I just want to say, like, I switched to Fios when I moved to my new apartment.
This is not an ad.
It's not an ad. I switched to Fios. And for the first couple of years, I was like, damn, really is better. But lately, it's not been good. So
Okay.
I want to know, is Beyonce only a spokesperson for the phone service? Because if she's a spokesperson for the Wi-Fi,
You need her to come fix your internet.
yeah, I'm just saying, like, I'd like a word, is all I'm saying. Anyway, so Beyonce's doing commercials now.
Yeah,
Who?
surprising.
Look, first of all, I will say for Super Bowl ads, like, who didn't? Like,
Right.
besides us, like, everybody does Super Bowl ad.
Super Bowl ads for the last few years now are only IP based, much like Hollywood.
Yes.
But they're just like, here's two random guys from a show you probably remember, and then here's a third celebrity in case you don't know who those two random guys are. Like the Scrubs one with Jason Momoa.
Yeah,
You know?
like-
just like what are we? What
They
are
were
we
literally
doing
just
here?
like calling around, like, who's going to be in the Malibu area from like 2 to 5 p.m. on this random Wednesday. And they just call the talent agent. They're like, we got Momoa. And it's like, all right, fine. throw him $500,000. He's there.
But Beyonce using a Verizon commercial to announce Act 2 of the Renaissance.
It's very,
era.
dare I say, Jay-Z Sprint phone era.
Oh yeah,
Like-
Magna Carta, Holy Grail. Do those words mean anything to you?
We do not speak of Magna Carta Holy Grail on this podcast.
I think that was during the NBA playoffs, if I recall.
It
correctly.
was also sports connected?
Yeah. Well, and even before that, Kingdom Come, remember, was like a Budweiser. There was like a Budweiser commercial with Kingdom Come, I believe.
We're really in, this is like,
with Dale Earnhardt Jr.
this is like
maybe?
dark,
Am I making this up?
is like the dark Brandon of Jay-Z.
Yeah.
Like that era.
So do you think Jay-Z had to sit Usher down and be like, look,
We're about to
really
steal your
happy for
thunder."
you. We're really happy for you. I know you think you're competing against Taylor Swift, but Beyonce is going to come back.
It's a very fair question, because one of the really frustrating narratives leading into the Super Bowl was like, is Taylor going to steal Usher's shine? Which I think is like, it's just a little bit racist. It's like a bad, like, I didn't love the energy of that question.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it invalidates Usher as a performer, yada yada. Like, here's a person who, like, even before the show, I was like, it's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
He's good. He's got huge hits.
The Taylor moments and the Usher thing had nothing to do with
Nothing.
each other.
Literally,
Yeah.
they're not in conflict with each other. Beyonce being like, "Hold my beer," quite maybe literally, hold my beer.
Cut to Taylor chugging her beer.
Yes.
Were you surprised to see?
Hello to Riot. Hello to Riot is doing great.
Yeah, Riot.
Riot's great.
Ice Spice's producer.
Yeah, having a great time. Ice Spice there, Lana Del Rey there,
Yep.
getting absolutely clobbered by some guy who
In the
like,
mosh pit. Is she okay?
Lana.
Where did she
Taylor?
come from? Lana wasn't there, and then all of a sudden she's getting trampled.
Yeah, I agree, but it's like also has she been with Taylor 100% of the time since the Grammys?
Where she did not seem happy to be on stage.
No, this is what I'm saying.
So I was surprised to see her. It's like, is that Lana Del Rey?
I had
Next
to
to
look
Blake Lively in the tracksuit
with the hair.
with the hair.
Incredible. Okay. Who's enjoying that the most in that skybox? Skybox
The game?
paid for by Travis Kelce
Reportedly.
for
Yeah.
both families.
Yeah.
You also saw the footage on Taylor put on TikTok of her with her parents in the
At the
club,
club, yeah.
at night.
That was excellent.
Yeah, good,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
No notes on that.
Yeah.
I think I'm not full circle, but it's like I felt a little bad for Taylor in that specific moment.
Say more.
I didn't need to have the person who was at the Super Bowl saying that the people were booing Taylor to let me know that there was some like tone of hostility and that like the group of people is in essence a buffer.
Sure.
It's how do I kind of create the safest space around.
Right.
And like Taylor is not a person who needs protecting from meanie NFL fans. Like
Right.
it's not that, but it's like, you're walking in a situation where like, number one, the person you're in a relationship might have the worst day of their career.
Right. Though he played great.
Did great, but I'm saying like that could happen.
Yeah.
And also for whatever reason, most of the people there wish you were not there.
They're sick of you.
It's literally the anti-Eras tour.
Yeah.
It's like you literally just got cheered by 100,000 people a night for 300 nights or 200 nights. And then you go to another 100,000 people who are just like,
No, thank you.
yes.
And with the Grammys as a sort of in between,
Yeah.
where she has this big moment, she
Yes.
announces the new album, then she wins Album of the Year.
Didn't love that.
And then you get the GIF reactions where people don't seem that happy. It's like
The Celine Dion
the
thing.
Celine Dion thing, the arguably snubbing Celine Dion and then quickly cleaning that mess up.
Yep.
Like the overexposure, okay, the best Taylor tweet I've seen in 6 months, a year maybe, is her mind. Watch Taylor make everyone turn on her before re-releasing Reputation.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah, it's good.
which is good. But it's just like she has to know that moment is coming where it's too much and that she could go away and make people miss her. I know she's continuing the tour abroad, but it doesn't have to be all Taylor all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And yet she's like, I just really love making music.
I'm putting out a new album.
Putting out a new album.
Y'all are going to have to see me next year at the Grammys.
But I think because of all this, we are underrating how crazy it is that Taylor Swift won the Super Bowl. like if you like,
Wait, did she win the Super Bowl or she won the Grammys?
no, the Super Bowl, like just randomly decided to date the second most important player on the football team of our era, pun intended, and then and she just took it all the way. Like they just took it all the way, and then she's on the field like flexing at like Chiefs role players. It's just like I just think this. It's almost underrated how crazy it is when we look back at the arc of Taylor's career, and you're like, oh yeah, that was the year that she won the Super Bowl. Like it's gonna be a symbol of her ubiquity and her just like otherworldly fame at this peak of her career. And I think like we won't really comprehend how nuts it was until we have some space from it. Because it's just so much.
And does it also mark the full rapprochement of jocks and poets?
I mean, the cheer captain, it's crazy. I just don't want to let us forget in our exhaustion of all things Taylor, like just how crazy it is.
Are there fan edits of like I'm in the bleachers and then cutting to like Travis Kelce being like,
all right, you saw that.
Are there? There's gotta be.
There's gotta be.
There's gotta be. I'm not on. You're on that part of Tumblr more than I am.
You saw the. What did you think of his post game? You saw him screaming "Viva Las Vegas."
Viva Las Vegas! Viva! Viva Las Vegas!
And the ick memes, her getting the ick in real time.
That was icky. She's got the ick.
Yeah.
It's like, do you think that was hard for her, those moments? He was going hard. I mean, look, if you win the Super Bowl, you're allowed to do whatever you want.
Here's the thing. It was hard for me, and I'm not dating him. Yeah, that was like there were those memes, and then there were the memes of when he was yelling at Andy Reid
on the sideline when he bumps
and
his
people
coach.
were like, I can't believe Taylor's dating this thug.
He accused Judd Apatow he could have killed him.
Yes, literally. Like, it tells me that maybe that he doesn't have great coping strategies in terms of dealing with his frustrations. And also maybe it tells me that he has not smoothed out his rough edges when it comes to joy. What do you think they talk about? I know I don't want to get too in this weeds, but like when I saw those two things, I was literally like, how do they communicate?
She must just be so proud of him, and he just must be so proud of her.
So proud. They communicate mutual pride. Just so proud. Wake up every morning and be like, so proud of you, babe. Me too. So proud of you, babe. And then that's that.
They can't stop winning. Like they just can't. They can't stop winning. May we all have
I can relate. I mean,
such successful
truly,
relationships.
who can relate? Okay, fine. I didn't want to. I mean, like we've somehow mostly avoided Taylor Travis.
Have we?
I feel like we have. We haven't gotten into it like super in the weeds.
Yeah.
But I felt like we had to touch on it.
Yeah.
Back to, I mean, again, not poor Usher, but
you like these Beyonce songs?
I like one of them.
Okay, so she puts out 2 singles, Texas Hold'em.
Texas Hold'em, 16 Carriages.
Right.
I like Texas Hold'em better of the two.
This ain't Texas, ain't no hold'em. Hey, lay your cards down, 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 down. No, pocket Lexus. Hey, throw your keys up. Hey, stick around, round, 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 round. Stick around. And I'll be damned if I cannot dance with you. Come pour some sugar on me, honey, too.
It's Beyonce's long promised country era.
Long, like insinuated.
Yes, long
Like
as
anonymously reported pre-Renaissance that
it was going to be
a 3-parter and that the second part was going to be country inspired. You know, she allegedly was in the studio with Ryan Tedder, who she's worked with a lot.
known country star Ryan Tedder. I often think of Ryan Tedder when I say I need a big country hit. Yeah, absolutely.
He's not on these songs, although the guy from the Stills is.
Yes,
that's a band.
That is a bit. Look, I guess Beyonce is also tapping into indie sleaze.
Right.
Stills, the first band signed to Vice Records, if I'm correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was there.
That. Yeah.
I was there.
Unfortunately.
I lived it.
Yeah.
I have that advance.
Raphael Sadiq.
Yes.
Who I feel like you can really hear on Texas Hold'em. Yep. He's bringing like that pop soul part to it.
Look, Beyonce's going to make a country record and never set foot in Nashville.
Okay.
That's fine.
Fine.
Again, fine. But just like when we're talking about country, and this obviously opens up huge conversations about who belongs in country music, who's allowed to belong in country music,
right?
Country music historic exclusion of black artists, country music premised upon black creative productivity and whitewashed over many, many decades. This is a long-running conversation that's particularly been happening in a more active way in the last 5 years. The work of the Black Opry organization to spotlight a lot of underserved and unknown black country musicians. This is very much an active conversation that Beyonce is, I gotta assume, aware of on some level, but it's not exactly the same thing as being in that mix. Somehow that leap to country is, to me, as genre or as music, is a little more implied than actual.
I thought it was telling that Rhiannon Giddens, who I guess does the banjo lick on Texas Hold'em,
yes,
and is part of these conversations,
very
part
much
of this
so.
World,
like a historian,
leading the conversations
so.
About black roots of country music. She called them her country inspired album in her tweet about it, which felt, I don't want to say pointed, but specific.
If I'm not mistaken, when Beyonce did Daddy Lessons, which to me is actually that's a real country record. That's an actual country record. And Beyonce played it with the former Dixie Chicks, now the Chicks, at the CMA Awards, which caused a whole kerfuffle in 2017 or 16 or something. It's 100 years ago. 100 years ago.
What angered me about it was that it overshadowed, two other performers of color who were kind of naturally there. Charlie Pride, who was, a huge figure, and then myself as a guest of Eric Church, where he was making a really particular point.
Neutralizing your skeptics, that's something all the greats know how to do.
Absolutely true. But Rhiannon Giddens playing on this, obviously is important. It signals to the people who are active in the Black country community that Beyonce is paying attention, but also the guy from the Stills.
Right.
And other songwriters who are like regular pop songwriters who work on a lot of different projects.
Lowell, the Canadian songwriter and singer who wrote a Madison Beer album, wrote 16 Carriages with Beyonce.
It was a co-writer, and then put a TikTok out about how excited she was to write on this song.
And then it disappeared. Yeah.
But I did save a screen grab.
Okay.
So we'll play the screen. We'll show the screen grab.
The number one rule of co-writing with Beyonce is you don't talk about co-writing with Beyonce.
Yeah, you didn't co-write with Beyonce. Yeah. So anyway, it is not like she did not go to Nashville and like write with Hillary Lindsey.
That we know of.
Yes. Although a Hillary Lindsey song in Beyonce voice.
Look, don't count it out. Don't count it out.
I'm just saying, if that hasn't happened yet, please, actually please, that would be unreal.
Do you think these songs are old?
Beyonce and Jelly Roll written by Hillary Lindsey?
Let's go.
What are you, what are we talking about here?
Did you see the thing about how in 16 Carriages, she sings the lyric 38 Summers? And then Tina, her mom, said, I've loved this song for years. And people think like, oh, maybe this song has been sitting around for like up to 5 years.
Oh, no,
Beyonce
I didn't catch
is now
that.
43.
Oh.
So I think like, Beyonce works all the time, doles stuff
Piecing
out in
together,
a very dedicated way. It's possible that this has been the plan for a really long time. Like, do you see it as of a piece with what she did with Renaissance of reclaiming the Black roots of dance music? Act 2 going to be something similar, and Act 3 in another space. I've seen people speculate maybe it's rock and roll. Maybe she's going to go back to Jack White. She did on Lemonade. Do you think she's telling that story? And even going back to Coachella and doing the marching band tradition, like is she just picking moments to put the Beyonce spotlight on Black music history?
Yeah, I mean, I think...
Or is that over-determining it?
No, I think that Beyonce always, maybe not in Destiny's Child era, but solo Beyonce, is a conceptualist at heart. And I think if that song is indeed 5 years old or whatever, when you think of... I don't know. Like when you make those 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzles...
Sure, I don't do that, but sure.
No, but conceptually, it's like you don't do it all in one sitting.
Yeah.
It's like you just kind of like come back to it.
Yeah.
You be like, let's spend 10 minutes. Where does this go? It kind of goes there. Which pieces have the blue on them? Da da da. That's how I think Beyonce makes songs. It's not like a lot of the younger artists who we like who just go in and just knock it out and it's done in 2 hours. Like Beyonce is building things. People. A lot of times when people are coming for Beyonce, they're like, why are there 7 songwriters on this? Why are the credits 20 names? It's because everybody has something to contribute and Beyonce is pulling things from different people.
And as we saw in the film, like she's the director. Like she's
very much so.
She has her hand in everything, but she knows how to deploy
very
people,
much like
delegate.
Kanye,
very much like
which
Kanye,
we'll talk about.
Which we'll get to.
Yeah. But to me, all of those things... Yes, I mean, if you're asking it's a conscious choice, yes. Why is it rolling out in 2024? That I don't know the answer to. I think when you do as many like big scale projects as Beyonce does, you probably can't put out like 4 big scale projects in a year. You probably have to like, we had the film last year, and then we had so everything needs a little bit of breathing space.
Conversely, the things that I like about these songs, although they definitely have big ideas behind them and are stirring up all these conversations already, which will continue probably for most of the year and into the next Grammy cycle, to me, they sound like old Beyonce, pre-conceptual Beyonce, like more like 4 or like Sasha Fierce even. Like she's trying on these costumes. There's different sounds here. There's sonic symbols and signifiers and whatnot. But the songwriting itself, it reminds me of like Halo or 16 Carriages. Like the storytelling reminds me of like School in Life, which is in a totally different sonic mode, but just like it sounds like Beyonce in a more casual era. And there's something really poppy about them that I like. It feels less forced to me than what she was doing with dance music on Renaissance, which felt little too. It was trying a little much for me, and she didn't seem as comfortable in that mode. I know a lot of people disagree with me on this, but these feel vintage to me a little bit, even though they're progressive because they have these country things. But like, remember, like If I Were a Boy, like Reba sang that song. You know what I mean? Like Beyonce used to do songs that could work in these different modes, and it feels a little throwback to me, and I like that. Even though they're rolling out as very heavy and loaded with meaning, to me, to my ear, listening to them more and more, they just sound like regular Beyonce songs.
That's interesting. I guess the only thing I would add to that is the era that you're referring to in early Beyonce feels like, and if it is preconceptual, what it actually is Beyonce is such a kind of like decorated and gifted vocalist that she almost doesn't require concept because she can sing with such power.
She's a great interpreter.
Yeah, sing with power, charisma, flair, dexterity, etc. These songs do not feel like that to me. They still feel like a little bit within the boundaries of like, how does a song like this sound? I wonder, and frankly, this is something that a lot of Nashville suffers from. So in that way, it is actually kind of in line with country music.
I like that about it.
Yeah, but I lose a little bit of Beyonce in here because I'm just like, if anybody could actually like blow this out of the water, if anybody could say these frameworks are actually kind of false, it's her. I mean, you mentioned Reba. I mean, you think about like how Reba sang in the 80s. It's not anything like how Reba sings now. And that's not just because Reba gets older. It's because country music has gotten a lot more circumscribed. But if you listen to what Reba was doing in the 80s, absolutely. And I wouldn't be surprised if Beyonce was learning or listening back then, picking up phrasings and gestures and so on and so forth. It'll be an interesting thing to say. I think as a concept, the way people will talk about it may not be exactly how it actually is.
I'll see you at the Sphere, allegedly. Not into that?
No. Sorry, B.
You know who else could play the Sphere? In another era.
Oh, man. All right, let's go. Let's go. Let's do it.
Vultures 1.
Sure is.
Came out.
Yeah. Still on Spotify.
His best album in a decade, and by him I mean Ty Dolla $ign.
Yes, it is since the Free TC, was it?
Or like Beach House 3 or something.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Is this album still on Spotify? It is. It was this morning. I know it got pulled
Vultures
down.
exist?
Yes.
Yeah,
it still
does.
exists.
It does. Even though it doesn't seem like he cleared any samples or beats or anything like that.
Which is why I was sort of surprised that they've let it stay up because there's some things that don't seem.
Donna Summer's not happy.
No,
Ozzy Osbourne's not happy.
No, people have. The thing that this album has made clear is that people are using Kanye, as always, as a line in the sand of I'm either on this side or I'm on the other side. By doing this the way that he's done it, he has alienated some people. This is par for the course. I think this album is. It's better than the last couple of Kanye albums.
Sounds finished.
It sounds, yeah.
In a way that he hasn't since.
It's close.
Yeah, it's almost done.
It's almost done.
like Life of Pablo was almost
done. Yes. Although this is not as ornate as Life of Pablo, obviously. The thing I think when I hear this record is that, number one, Kanye is paying attention. He's paying attention to Travis. He's paying attention to Cardi.
He's paying attention to Brazilian funk.
Someone is paying attention to Brazilian funk. He is, we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording, but it's like so much of contemporary hip hop, I think, can be traced back to like one of two Kanye gestures. You have Kanye in 808s, leading to Drake, leading to all the melodic stuff that's happened. And then you have Kanye in Yeezus, which leads to Travis, which leads to Cardi. This is very much Kanye making, in essence, like an answer or update record to the people who like made answer or update records to him. This very much feels like that's the through line. Sounds current.
Sounds like it's supposed to sound. It sounds like a Kanye album, but then what?
But so here's the thing. I think if I've had obviously I've spent quite a bit of professional time thinking about Kanye. If I had one musical anxiety, I have plenty of extra musical concerns, but a musical anxiety is that does Kanye know how to make an album that sounds like it came out right now? Because even if you look at the Wyoming projects, Donda stuff, they sounded like Kanye records, but they didn't necessarily sound like they were in discourse with what was happening in the current moment in hip hop when they came out. This record sounds like it's in discourse with things that are happening. The fact that he landed that sounds like Kanye, but it also sounds contemporary. That didn't think that was a guarantee that was going to happen.
And what about him either addressing or not addressing
like recent events?
His anti-Semitism.
Yeah. I mean, look, this has not been an easy 16 months for people who pay attention to Kanye West.
I think you could take that even longer, probably.
Yeah. Okay.
4 years?
Yes, 4 years, although like I feel like the last run has been particularly tough.
Sure.
I guess let me talk about that part first, and then we'll talk about whether he addresses it or not. Every person I know as a fan of Ye or as a collaborator, like everybody I talk to about Ye, whether they know him personally or don't, has a moment of feeling either challenged by or pushed away by him. And it's hard. It's hard for people to have uncomplicated fandom. A lot of the people who you see really, really embracing Kanye right now are frankly relatively young. Like I think a lot of these kids know Kanye.
You're talking about fans more than collaborators?
Yes, fans. Sorry, fans. I think a lot of the fans are young. They didn't live through Dropout or Fantasy or Graduation or whatever, which is fine. Like you come in where you come in. But, you know, Kanye is like a streetwear icon who happens to also make music or be friends with a lot of famous musicians. And maybe for that generation of fans, like him being problematic with anti-Semitism and the way in which he speaks about and is dismissive of people who are pushing back against him, that might seem edgy or edgelordy. It's like kind of consistent with a lot of internet behavior. You know, it's trollish, it's 4chan-ish, it's whatever. But as someone who's older and lived through multiple eras, this has been like a particularly disorienting time. I think if you look back at earlier Kanye eras, like he's always been doing a version of this, but it's like the targets were maybe a little more worthy.
Sure.
Back in the day.
Yeah, punching up instead of down.
We were talking a little bit about like the Vultures merch and these ripping off Burzum t-shirts. Just like, don't do that. Like, what are we doing? But then you think about there's a line back to the White Lives Matter shirt. And then there's a line in the Yeezus era, the West Lang stuff, the
Confederate flag,
the 3 hooded figure shirts. Like he has been toying with this. And it's not really stuff to toy with, but for quite a long time. Whether he uses his music to speak about it or lash out, like to me, that's almost like the least meaningful part of the music. Like, I'm not saying you separate one from the other. I don't think it's that clean, of course, but like the fact that Kanye is making music that sounds contemporary puts him in the conversation. But Kanye, to me, is not functioning primarily right now as a musician. He's functioning as like a flashpoint. He's functioning as like a fulcrum point where people are like, I'm on one side or on the other side. He happened to have made a record that I and you to some degree and many of the people who I like and trust who have varying feelings about Kanye West like.
I don't know. I feel like there's diminishing returns to both the sound and the content.
I don't think it has legs in the same way, but I also don't know that the album is the thing right now.
Yeah. But the other thing I want even less. Like if I want anything from Kanye, it's music that I feel drawn to, that you can't help but play, even though you're like, I'm uncomfortable about this guy. Like the only thing that can make extracurricular mess go away for a musician is great music.
Yes.
And I felt like he tried to do that with this, in that it's not a full album of defending himself.
No.
There's flashes of it.
It's not even a full album of Kanye West.
No, well, there's very little Kanye on
Yeah.
this Kanye album, which has been the case increasingly over the years. A ton of great guest appearances. I mentioned Ty Dolla $ign. I do think Ty Dolla $ign sounds amazing on this. And he also pulls...
Dirk sounds great on this record.
Dirk sounds amazing on this. Playboy Cardi sounds great on this.
Yeah.
Chris Brown singing the guy from Hot Chips solo song, Gabriel from a few years ago. You know, whatever. Like these are Kanye moves, and he keeps returning to them. And the lines where he does try to address things, I have Jews on staff. He says like on the intro song, you know, there's the Bill Cosby, R. Kelly line, and then he very quickly says Taylor Swift. Like, just feels a little rote, you know? It's like even the shock, if it's for shock value, it's not shocking. It didn't really drive the conversation this weekend. I mean, there was a lot of other stuff going on, as we've touched on, but like nobody really latched on to any of like. People just feel tired. And I think that what happens with quote unquote canceled figures right now is they can get people in a tizzy and then they're like, I know how to get people in a tizzy, and they keep returning to that. Eventually people stop paying attention.
Diminishing returns.
And they go directly to their audience. You have him making a quote unquote Super Bowl commercial that's really like an Instagram post.
Yeah, sure.
Hey y'all, this Ye, and this my commercial. And since we spent all the money on the commercial spot, we actually didn't spend any money on the actual commercial.
Who knows if it aired during the Super Bowl? I didn't see it.
Yeah, I genuinely don't know the answer to that question.
He's selling merch directly on his website, you know, with Dov Charney as his corporate partner, another person who's just like, people are like, you're not even shocking anymore, just leave us alone. You know, it reminds me of like Louis C.K. Like Louis C.K. is probably making a lot of money. He sells
Woody Allen?
Woody Allen, less technologically knowledgeable.
Yes.
Louis C.K. sells his specials directly to his fans on his website. You know, it's not on HBO. It's not on Netflix. But I'm sure he's making more money than he ever has. Kanye has Milo Yiannopoulos texting him how much money they made over this direct-to-consumer stuff. He's filling stadiums. Like, he's going to continue to be able to do this because the people who love him love him. Our colleague Julia Jacobs did a piece about this, talking to fans. People either shrug or they say, that's, you know, I like the work. I don't care about the opinions. Ultimately, Kanye doesn't know that much about anything. Like he's about current events. Like,
no, and that was always clear. I mean, this is, you know, when I interviewed him in Wyoming and talking about Trump, it's like he very just was like, I don't know about the policies. Like,
there's a recent clip of him being asked about Israel and Palestine. Like, you know, he just says like, I don't know anything about this. Yeah, and tries to turn the conversation to Chicago.
Your thoughts on the Palestinians?
I don't have enough information on that. I got 14 kids dying every week in my city. You know what I'm saying? So talk to me about that.
Yes.
The other thing that I will say, and to extend the point you're saying about what he is and is not talking about in his music, I think that there are like canceled quote unquote artists who then use that grievance to fuel their audience, or their audience identifies them with them through a grievance.
Sure.
Maybe this guy,
right?
On some level.
R.I.P.
Yeah. Who was a more complicated figure. Like the music was more complicated. He was a more complicated figure. But artists often, you don't always choose your audience. And sometimes an audience finds you in a particular moment and they stay with you for that sense. And I think for this era of Toby, it's a grievance, right? But I don't get the sense that a lot of Kanye's audience, current audience, active, is an audience that wishes to be aggrieved. I don't feel like I'm not saying that.
I think they like the defiance.
Yeah, but there's a difference between defiance and a grievance. Like, I don't think Kanye's audience is like, they might be like, I too can overcome obstacles, but I don't think they're like, I'm mad at I'm using Kanye as my way of expressing how disappointed in the world I am. I don't necessarily think that's what Kanye is functioning as.
And I don't think it's that deep, really, in general.
It may or may, but that's notable.
In that relationship.
That's notable because I think a lot of the discourse around Kanye is about that stuff. It is like you saying, like, do the songs address this? Like, is he using the songs to express a grievance or vengeance or whatever? And the public TMZ level discourse of Kanye, which is probably the primary level of discourse. I think he's liable to get more coverage in that sort of press than in like conventional music press now.
By far. Yeah.
And so that level of conversation with Ye, I just don't know. Like, I don't think the average fan quote unquote, is living at that level. I think the average fan is experiencing it in a totally different way, but the kind of chattering class and the discourse class is always going to see Kanye through this other framework of agreement.
And what I'm saying is when the discourse level burns out, which I think it has, because he's not that interesting to argue with, because he's not saying that much ultimately, I think then you're just left with the fans. And I think Ty Dolla $ign is actually a very effective collaborator for him in that, because he's bringing him towards the main thing that Kanye West music is about, which is sex. Like, it's sex. Like, 90% of this album is sex talk. And that's most of Kanye's career. Like, you know, you can say, oh, Kanye was revolutionary. Kanye was this. Kanye was that. Kanye's been making penis
horny
jokes.
He's been horny for 2 decades.
Yeah, and there's the toss-off line in on this album where he's like, they've been feeding us porn since the day we were born. Like, Kanye is an open porn addict. He's open about his addiction to pornography. He's just making gross jokes. Like this
sex punchlines.
He made a song based on a quote from Jay and Silent Bob in Dogma. Like that's the level we're working on here. So I think like it's telling that that's where this is going to end up. And like teenagers are always going to like jokes. Like, you know, like that's where we're at.
A lot of adults do.
A lot of adults do. Yeah. But I'm like, I think that's where we're at. And like the sooner we can stop, I mean, and he's guilty of pulling in this direction, but like sooner we can stop pretending like a lot of this is like really meaningful or high stakes. Like I just don't think this album is meaningful or high stakes.
No,
I don't think I'll be returning to it, but like it sounds better than I thought it would.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is an era of Kanye, and I think that you can argue that it goes up through Yeezus and maybe even through Pablo of philosophical Kanye. I think that it's not implausible that you could view Kanye through the lens of I identify with concerns, ideological concerns here. But I don't think that kind of like post-Trump Kanye, I don't know that a lot of fans, like if Kanye were to do a tour right now, which I don't think not sure he could.
He's doing his version of a tour.
Yeah, but he was doing a classic tour. Like, is that just MAGA fans who go?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I just don't think that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so because of that, I think the people who have gotten off the Kanye train are people who found ideological succor with him at some point earlier and now are just like, this guy doesn't speak for what I speak for anymore. And that's fine. But I think you're right, which is that this current generation, for them, it's experience. I don't need to be at a Kanye concert. I can be at a Kanye listening event. It's scene, it's texture, it's event.
It's definitely an event.
It's something to take a video of and post and say I was there.
Though you did note that there's some Kanye songs on Spotify's New Music Friday.
I saw that.
Which I don't think, that hasn't been happening for a little while. So it does seem like, people just forget. And like these people are not held to the same standard over an extended period of time. And like things soften and hits make stuff go away. You saw it a little bit with Donda. You had the song with The Weeknd, Lil Baby. Mm-hmm. It was like a legitimate hit. Like, do you think is there a hit on here? Like, is there a song that
like what's a hit? You mean like a radio record?
Or anything? Like, do any of these songs matter, or is it just the event? You like any of these songs? So like something that sticks out to you musically? Let's go out with one. Yeah, I mean, you raise your eyebrows. Like, well, maybe we'll like that's notable. Like, you have to take these.
Which is the one with Dirk?
The one with Dirk is Vultures. That's that's the title track.
Yeah.
Again, that sort of like gets headlines because it has the dumb line about having sex with a Jewish woman.
Yeah, but
like the rest of the song is like pretty good. Kanye song, like got a nice performance out of Guess, which is the thing that he's been great at for
and it's
20
always
years.
And frankly, like I feel like I've written about this over the years in a bunch of different contexts. I feel like you can learn a lot about a performer by how hard the guests try. Mm-hmm. And these guests,
a lot of people still want to work with Kanye.
They want to work and they're delivering good stuff.
And it's everyone from Freddie Gibbs and Lil Durk to JPEG Mafia, who was criticizing Kanye a couple weeks ago,
right? But then took a photo, and then
Quavo's on here,
credits on this.
Album. Like everyone is still showing up for him, and I think like that's going to continue to happen because ultimately he's still Kanye West.
Yeah, and success in whatever terms begets like if Kanye had taken all the lumps that he took, especially in late 2022 into early 2023, and then disappeared, I don't think all these people show up to work for him. But the fact that he's like, hey, I'm coming back. I've got new shoes. I've got new clothes. I'm making records. I'm doing arena shows. Respectfully, a lot of the artists who we're working with maybe can't do any of those things. Kanye is an idol to them. They'll show up for him. And so to them, he's still an OG. Whether you like it, whether you don't like it, he serves that function for a lot of people. And so I just, as long as he still has a gravitational pull, I mean, you mentioned the text about how many pairs of shoes they sold and how many, $20 million of merch sold in a day.
Allegedly.
Yeah. But like.
From Milo.
Yeah, exactly. Take it all with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
But allegedly. Not anybody could do. None of the people who are on this album could do that. And so I think there's still something very alluring that Kanye's professed freedom has allowed him entree into whether it's a financial freedom, a financial class of success. That's always going to bring people to the table who maybe don't have access to that same level of quote unquote freedom.
Should we just listen to Lil Durk on Vultures?
We should.
Go Bert, jump off in that lane, you gon' get put on a poster. My Ferrari F8, Lamborghini Roadster. I turned 10 bricks into 12, then Birds had a growth spurt.
Shall we palate cleanse?
Yeah.
I don't know if my song is a palate cleanse.
I got a palate cleanse song.
Okay, you can go first then.
All right. Okay, this artist, we talked about this. Yeah. There's a lot of, you see a lot of artist names. We talk about this with SoundCloud rappers all the time, and you don't say them out loud for a while.
Yeah.
This is
just out of respect because you're just not sure.
Well, and also just it doesn't come up. Yeah. Artists live on the internet first, and then they live on podcasts.
Yes.
This is Mk.gee.
If you say so.
This is Mk.gee. Not to be confused with Mk.gee, the director of Charlie's Angels and the pilot of the OC.
Wow, that's correct. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
That's my guy. The early 2000s Mk.gee.
Yeah.
Different. This is Mk.gee. He's a guitarist in Dijon's band.
Yeah.
Just put out a new album called 2 Star and the Dream Police.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
go off.
That's what this album sounds like. This is the
Tortured Poets Department.
Yeah,
perhaps?
the Tortured Poets Department. This is smooth. He plays guitar with Dijon. This is post Frank Ocean, genreless, Rex Orange County, Dominic Fike, jazzy guitars,
meandering,
nice
meander.
airy vocals,
a ramble.
Yeah, and these guys, they jam, they love music. This is this is a highly musical bedroom pop. I think it's toured with Claro. This is doing some noodling, but with a pop core.
Yeah.
And I like his voice. I hadn't really been tapped in with this stuff, but I listened to this album. And yeah, there's a video of him performing live on, I think, a moving train. It looks like it's shot on film.
Okay, I've not seen this.
We're gonna play that.
Okay.
So this is Mk.gee, Are You Looking Up live.
When no one ever reads, so are you looking up or you asking why? If you wanna go, then baby go wide. Yeah, I can shift shapes, but I can deny. Yeah, we can put it out the rest one night.
Chief Keef back.
Yeah, this is the opposite vibe.
Yeah. There were a couple of the songs I was considering this week. I actually think I'm kind of into the Casey Musgrave song.
Okay. We'll come back to Casey Musgraves.
Yeah, we'll come back. I'm sure we'll come back to Casey.
Another person whose album rollout got stomped on by Beyonce and Taylor Swift.
Just genuinely, if you had a plan to come out in March or April, just very simply, come out in September.
Put your albums back.
Yeah, just tuck your chains in, put your albums back. Chief Keef, Mike Gold made it. Dirty Nachos. I mean, there's nothing to say. It just sounds exactly like what you think when I say all those words.
Yep.
It thunders.
It thunders.
It thunders.
And we will be keeping an eye on Chief Keef hanging out with Netspend.
Which I saw on the internet over the weekend. I couldn't be. The Netspend content that I saw over the weekend was he played some party in a warehouse in LA. And they were it was a long, one of these long bush book type rooms. But there was like a bunch of fashion kids in the back, like just taking like outfit pictures of themselves while Netspend is like working really hard on stage. Anyway, doing great. Everybody's doing great. Chief Keef, Netspend. No, Netspend is not a record. Chief Keef.
Not yet.
Mike, not yet. The remix. Mike Will Made It. Dirty Nachos.
Stay your feet, don't come on my street. The bitch know Keef always got some on his feet. I'm looking at my son and he grew a couple feet. Know I be with my boys and I ain't talking back street. If you tryna front, pull up on the back street. Know I got money, don't be tryna tax me. If you don't
Food time. Not Dirty Nachos, but
Dirty pretzels.
Dirty pretzels.
Dirty Dots home style pretzels. I've been waiting to try Dots on the pod. I've eaten a fair amount of Dots offline.
Okay.
Are you up on Dots?
No, so the way that I arrived at this was a Jack Harlow IG story.
Okay.
And
they're on the rider?
I feel like they are. Like he said, like, I forget exactly what he said because you know how Jack says things and they just seem charming. He's like, it's like, I need to meet Dot. Like, I don't need to meet anybody in the game, but I need to meet Dot.
Yeah, Dot's on every bag.
Yes.
The little Polaroid of Dot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had not previously heard of Dot's Pretzels, and then I started keeping an eye out, and I found 2 flavors. This flavor, which is cinnamon sugar.
Yep, cinnamon sugar seasoned.
And then a
pretzel
honey
twist.
mustard flavor. Yeah. And I just was simply not a strong enough person to not immediately house the honey mustard bag.
How do they compare to the Zapp's honey mustard flavor? Because Zapp's is also competing in the artisanal pretzel game now. We both love Zapp's in general, I think.
Here's how I feel about the Zapp's flavor is more pointed, but the Dots pretzel is a better experience.
Are so good.
And I don't even bang with pretzels.
Me either. I'm not a pretzel guy.
I don't like they're so like they're mealy. Like the minute you bite into it, they just get so mealy.
Yeah, no.
They crumble and then they get mushy.
I already know how good these are.
I know.
I've had them, but we're gonna try them fresh. I'm gonna pretend like they're not already a 9 or a 10, and I'm gonna come at it clean. But yeah, Dots pretzels, like every flavor is good. There's a lot of flavors, and every one I've tried is good.
So it's cinnamon sugar
this is like
seasoned,
the dessert one,
but it's cinnamon and sugar with a twist.
Sugar. Yeah, I don't know if that distinction matters.
Oh, this smell! I just it smells so good. You know how sometimes with cinnamon flavored things, you can sense the syntheticness of it.
Not this.
No, this feels like
Like this is like
fresh
Auntie
out
Dot made them
fresh out the oven.
Yeah, they're so good. This is like
whole
bag demolished.
Go off, Dot.
Yeah, Dot's undefeated.
And again, the pretzel itself, it doesn't collapse too quickly.
Great
and
pretzel.
even when it does get a little bit on the mealier, mushy side, it's not kind of
They're small. It's gone by that point. Starts off really sweet, but then levels out, like not cloyingly sweet by the end of the pretzel, and then you're ready for the next one. They're so good,
man.
It's like a 9.5 out of 10, easy.
It's really good.
Quite buttery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna go 9. It's really good. Dot.
Hit us with some new flavors. Whatever you're working with in the lab, we're ready.
That's our show. We're back. Every podcast ever. It's at nytimes.com/popcast. We are on youtube.com/popcast. We are also on TikTok at tiktok.com/popcast deluxe. Joe, I have a secret.
Okay.
I made a Zazzle.
You made a Zazzle. They go to a good cause.
Yeah, like this is the thing about Zazzle is not a lot of margin on a Zazzle product.
But any margin
will end up going to a good cause. Stickers are still it's the popcast.myshopify.com. Email me if you're curious about the Zazzle and you're like, why is there no tiny, I don't know, like keychains? Why are there no keychains? I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Bottle opener.
Yes, bottle opener. Popcast@nytimes.com. Get in the Discord. Get in the Facebook group, tinyurl.com/popcast Facebook or Popcast Discord. Special thanks to Pat Gunther, Nell Galogli, Leslie Davis, Pedro Rosado, Karen Gans. Our senior producer is Sawyer Roque. Our editor is Jamie Heffitz. We'll be back next week.